The New York Islanders open a 7-game homestand tonight against the Ottawa Senators. We'll explain why this 7-game stretch may make or break not only this season, but the next few seasons going ahead for the New York Islanders. We've got all that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they come out. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You could start the playoffs with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. This 7-game homestand has huge implications for the New York Islanders. If the Islanders, let's say, can go get 10 points out of a possible 14, and you put that together with the 3-game winning streak that they enter this 7-game homestand with, that is an opportunity for the Islanders to make up some ground and assert themselves in either in one of the wild card spots in the Eastern Conference or so close to it that you know they can possibly contend for the rest of the season. However, if they don't, if they go, let's say, 3-3-1 or 2-2-3, if they don't really play well over this 7-game stretch, let's face it, their chances of making up the points necessary to get into a playoff spot this year become a lot less. And why? Well, here's one big reason. You just have to know that the Islanders right now are 14th out of 16 teams in the Eastern Conference. Yes, they're only 5 points behind the second wild card, which is Columbus. They do have a game in hand, but they also have to leapfrog 6 teams in order to make one of those 2 wild card spots. And I think it's safe to say at this stage of the season that when the Islanders are 14 points behind third place Carolina, and yeah, the Islanders have 2 games in hand, but it's still, they're not catching Washington, New Jersey, or Carolina this year. The Islanders have not played consistently well enough to claim that spot. And, Carolina just has enough talent that you could say, they're not going to fall that far in the standings. So it's wild card or bust if you're thinking playoffs this year. And this 7-game homestand features 4 games against teams that the Islanders are battling for those wild card spots, which means the games are winnable. Because any team that is in the wild card hunt in the Eastern Conference is either just above, at, or just below NHL 500. You've got Ottawa, followed by Philadelphia. Then you have San Jose, who is obviously a team in rebuilding mode, who is 13 games under NHL 500. That's the kind of game you should be winning at home. Followed by Columbus, Philadelphia again. Then you close out with 2 tougher games, Carolina and Colorado, before going on the road for 3. But keep in mind, the first 2 of those 3 road games, the Flyers again, and the Lightning, who are, just a little bit ahead of all these wild card teams in third place in the Atlantic Division, but realistically, what are they? 2 points ahead of Boston, who's now in the first wild card spot. So here's the thing. The Islanders right now have played 24 road games and 18 home games. It evens out after this stretch, okay? It evens out now. And this is their big chance. The Islanders are healthier than they've been in a long time. They're facing the right opponents right now. And they are playing over the last 3 or 4 games in particular better hockey than they've played all year. If you go out and prove that, over these 7 games, you can go 4, 4-1-2, get me 10 points out of these 14 games, and I think you're right back in the swing of things, and you can think about fighting for that wild card spot. But here's the backside of that, the flip side. There's got to be a cutoff for Lou Lamoriello to say, if we're 8 points back at 4 Nations, or 10 points back at 4 Nations, or we have, 6 teams to leapfrog by the time 4 Nations comes along. There's got to be a cutoff point where Lou Lamoriello realizes that this team may not be good enough to even squeak into the playoffs, which I think most Islander fans understand is indeed their ceiling this year. So if the Islanders catch fire over these 7 games, and remember, they're 7-9-2 at home this year, but if they can catch fire over these 7 games, they could fight for a playoff spot for the rest of this season. But if they stumble, or if they're just, average, if they go 3-1 in these 7 games, that's not good enough. And the other thing is this, and think about it. When you're playing Ottawa or Philadelphia or Columbus, winning in regulation becomes vital, because getting 2 points in the standings is great. Yes, that's what you want to do. But gaining 2 points on those teams you're trying to catch rather than 1 is huge. So here it is, make or break, put up or shut up. And I know Lou Lamoriello and the Islanders organization tend to be reluctant. Lou has said, I don't believe in retooling. I don't believe in rebuilding. I'm trying to win now. I always want to make the playoffs. All good things to say. But, there is a time to everything. There is a season, and there is a time and a place when you realize that this core is only going to get you so far, and trying to rely on winning 4 playoff rounds against teams with better records than you to win a Stanley Cup is not a high percentage move when you can retool and try to become something more than a fringe playoff team. Matthew Barzal himself, before last season started, talked about we don't want to just sneak into the playoffs by the skin of our teeth again. I'm paraphrasing, not quoting, but you get the idea. That still hasn't happened. And there are no more excuses. Lou Lamoriello gave his midseason speech. He said, I still believe in this team. You could put that on a loop on a tape recorder because he's almost always going to say that. But he's trying to give his team that boost, that little vote of confidence boost. Hey, Lou still believes in us. We have to believe in us. We got to go out and prove Lou right. Otherwise, trades come and you break up this team. I still think the trades should come for the long-term health of the team. But if the Islanders do not make moves at the trade deadline to get younger, faster, and more skilled, this trade deadline and this offseason presents itself with a lot of unique opportunities to create cap space, trade away some of the veterans, and make the situation a retool faster and less painful. After this, it gets harder because either you lose Brock Nelson for nothing or you sign him to a contract that takes him to 36, 37 years old or older. And knowing Lou, there'll be a no trade clause or a partial no trade clause and probably, too many years attached to whatever deal there is. You lock in a Noah Dobson. You lock in possibly another deal for Kyle Palmieri. This is your chance. With Anders Lee playing as well as he is, his trade value will never be higher. This is your chance to speed up the retool, take away some of the pain, and do it right. Whether or not Lou is going to do that may depend on how the Islanders do in these next 7 games. They can either fight their way back into the playoffs or fall back. The problem in my mind is what's most likely to happen is we get something like a 3-3-2 kind of a record where they're okay, they're not great, they're not terrible, and they're still hanging on by their fingertips. And Lou says, okay, we're going to stick with this group because we're still only, 7 points out or 8 points out. We can still do this, and nothing changes. We'll see. But I think these 7 games will have a big effect on this team, not just what happens for the rest of this year, but maybe for the next couple of years to come, because you've got to pick a direction and a path, and it's got to be the right one, and then it's got to be executed right. Otherwise, muddy middle, here we are, and here we'll stay and sink slowly toward the bottom, and that's not what fans want to see. All right. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We will talk about some injury updates and a little lineup change that Patrick Waugh put together. We'll preview tonight's game against Ottawa. And for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a player who won a Stanley Cup with the Rangers, but also played for the Islanders and the Devils over the course of his career. Let's see if you can guess who this Russian forward is. We've got all that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are just better with FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app, it gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. And Islander fans, you could use your knowledge of hockey and the Islanders to find some exciting opportunities on FanDuel. Check out the odds for tonight's game against the Senators. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. So today, Monday, the Islanders back on the ice for practice. And the good news, Isaiah George was skating and was practicing with the team. He's missed 3 games since taking a hit to the head from Max Domi back on January 2nd. But we still do not know his status for tonight's game against Ottawa. Patrick Waugh, after practice, said he looked good. I don't know if he's going to play or not. We'll probably know more tomorrow, but he looked good. You know who else was skating and in practice on Monday? How about Ilya Sorokin? He missed the game against Utah with an illness. He was practicing and was looking like he was going to be the starter. So good news there. Grant Hutton returned back to Bridgeport, as was goalie Jakub Skarek. So it looks like we will have Ilya Sorokin ready to rock and roll on tonight. And that is certainly good news. Now, not all good news right now, because not everybody who is out was at practice. No Alexander Romanov. He did not practice with the team. So he looks unlikely to be ready. Now, he is listed still as day to day. He's got the upper body injury that, they're not going to be any more specific than that. Is it possible that he aggravated the previous injury that caused him to miss time? Yeah, it kind of is, but we'll see. But as of right now, not looking very likely that we see him tonight. Now, Simon Holmstrom not practicing yet. Semyon Varlamov, who we thought would be practicing when the team returned from their 3-game road trip, also not on the ice with the team. So it looks like it will be Ilya Sorokin backed up by Marcus Hogberg tonight. Probably no Simon Holmstrom, probably no Alexander Romanov. And that, kind of puts the team, well, sort of halfway back or a step closer to being healthy. Now, Patrick Roy also made a change in the lineup as far as the line combinations were concerned on Monday. Nelson, Lee, and Barzal remains the top line, but he made a shift between the second and third line. Right now, Anthony Duclair moves from the second line down to the third line, and Roy switched that up late in the game against Utah. So now it's second line of Horvat, Maxim Siplikov, and Kyle Palmieri, and then a third line of J.G. Pajot, Anthony Duclair, and Casey Cizikas. The fourth line still McLean, Martin, and Engvall, again with Holmstrom not ready to return. And on D, there's a rotation. So they didn't necessarily pair people up. They just kept rotating. But it was Dobson, George, Pollock, Pelech, Mayfield, and Chalowski. You've got 7 defensemen rotating in. Obviously, the wild card is Dobson. No Romanov. That's looking like he's not going to be ready. And that's where the Islanders stand heading into this game against the Ottawa Senators. So, look, they're as healthy as they've been. As far as the line move is concerned, I get it, because here's why. Anthony Duclair has not been himself yet since returning from his injury. And I have no difficulty with that. I mean, it takes time. Duclair missed more time, I think, than any other player on the injured list. He was injured earlier than anybody else, and he is a guy who his speed is part of his game. The timing and the stamina, it takes time. We saw the same thing with Matthew Barzal. It took time for Barzy to get back into the swing of things. Now he is sort of back in the swing of things, and that's encouraging. I think it's just a matter of time with Duclair, and hopefully the Duke can get back on track. Right now, Duclair, he has 3 goals and 6 points in 14 games this year. That's not the pace that, the Islanders were hoping for from him. But again, he only played 5 games before getting hurt, and hopefully he rounds back into form. And let's talk a little bit about Max Siplikov, because I like Siplikov. I like a lot of the things he does. He's got to cut down on the penalties. He is still first on the team with 26 penalty minutes. But Siplikov right now on pace for 14 goals and 37 points. Not quite the 15 to 20 goals that we were hoping for from him, but I like a lot of the intangibles and the little things he brings. He can be physical. He is smart about the way he sees the ice. He has a high hockey IQ. He just needs to be, I think, a little more comfortable in the North American game and maybe a little more confident in his shot. The thing that I think is missing with Siplikov, in 42 games, only 59 shots on goal. I hate to say this because I think we say this about almost every player on this team, but Maxim Siplikov needs to shoot the puck a little bit more, and hopefully that will help pick up his offensive game in the near future. All right, we have got more to get to on today's show. We will preview tonight's game, big game against the Ottawa Senators as the Islanders go for their first 4-game winning streak of the season. Let's see if they can do that. We'll have that. We'll have our Islanders birthday of the day and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Well, that definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. So, cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from hosts Steele and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Islanders, Senators, tonight, back on Long Island. And, this is obviously important for the Islanders. They need to get into the swing of things. The Senators, they have won 2 straight, and they've beaten 2 teams that are, solid teams. They shut out the Penguins in Pittsburgh 5-0. And then the next night went out and beat the Dallas Stars in Ottawa 3-2. Now, they had a losing streak before that. And I would have to say, just like the Islanders, the Ottawa Senators at times have looked really, really good and at times have really struggled. The big problem for the Senators has been, offense. They're 21st in the league in goals scored, 9th in goals against, but their big acquisition, Linus Ullmark, he's injured right now. So the former Bruins goalie not available, and the Islanders and the Senators rather have to find a way to get by without him. Now their power play is top 10. It's 9th in the league, 24.1% success. The Islanders cannot let them. Now the penalty kill for the Islanders has been a little better over the last 3 games or so, 4 games, but boy, oh boy, they cannot get into the box. You give guys like Brady Tkachuk and Drake Batherson and Claude Giroux and Tim Stützle extra time and space, they can make you pay. The penalty kill for Ottawa, middle of the league, a little below average at 18th, 78.4% success rate. Right now, Brady Tkachuk leads the team with 18 goals, followed by Josh Norris with 15, and Drake Batherson and Tim Stützle with 14 each. Stützle has 29 assists and 43 points. Both of those, he leads the team in those 2 categories. The line combinations for the Sens: Josh Norris, Brady Tkachuk, Drake Batherson. That's the top trio, followed by Stützle centering Giroux and Adam Gaudette. Shane Pinto, the Long Island native, centers Nick Cousins and Ridley Gregg on the third line. And on the fourth line, it's Zach Ostapchuk centering Zach McEwen and Matthew Highmore. On the blue line, Thomas Chabot and Nick Jensen are the top pair. Jake Sanderson and Artem Zub, the second pair. Tyler Cleven and Nicholas Matinpalo are the third pair. The goalies right now, Levi Merilainen and Anton Forsberg. A lot of injuries. Listen to this injury list. We mentioned Ullmark on the IR, as is David Perron, Michael Amadio, Jacob Bernard Docker, former Islander Travis Hamonic, Noah Gregor, and Cole Reinhardt right now listed as day-to-day. So the Islanders have an opportunity. They're not facing Linus Ullmark. And whether they see Anton Forsberg or Levi Merilainen, and Merilainen has played well, a 2.34 goals against, a 4-2-0 record, and a 9.13 save percentage. His numbers are kind of comparable to Ullmark's, but we'll see how the Senators decide it. Look, these two teams have already met twice this season, and both times the Islanders skated away with 4-2 wins in Ottawa, first on November 7th, then on December 8th. This is their opportunity to sweep the season series from the Senators and to pick up 2 big points in the standings against a team that is both ahead of them and that they are fighting for a wild card spot with. And by the way, got to win these games in regulation. Do not give the other team 1 point and you get 2. You want this to be a 4-point game, not a 2-point game. All right. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And today is the 61st birthday of former Islanders center Sergei Nemchinov. The Moscow native, 6 feet, 200 pounds, a 12th round pick of the Rangers back in 1990. He played a long time in Russia before coming to the Rangers in 91-92. Put up 30 goals that first year, had more than 20 in his next 2 seasons, but gradually became more of a checking forward. Later played for the Canucks briefly and then joined the Islanders for the 97-98 and 98-99 seasons. Got sent to the Devils, where he closed out his NHL career. Won a Stanley Cup with the Rangers in 94 and with the Devils in 2000. Finished his hockey career back in Russia in 03-04. But in the NHL, in 761 career games, Sergei Nemchinov, 152 goals, 345 points, 251 penalty minutes, add 11 goals and 31 points in 105 playoff games, but none of those were with the Islanders. One of his best games as an Islander, how about November 29th, 1997, back at the old barn in Uniondale, Islanders hosting the St. Louis Blues. Former Islander Jamie McLennan, the goalie for the Blues, Eric Fischel, the goalie for the Islanders in this one. And our Islanders birthday of the day, Sergei Nemchinov, gives the Islanders a 1-0 lead just 3 minutes and 14 seconds into the game. Tom Chorsky, the only assist. 1-0 Islanders. Goals by Brian Berard and Travis Green make it 3-0 Islanders. And that's how it was after one period and entering the third period. But Brett Hull and Jim Campbell scored to make it close. And then our Islanders birthday of the day, Sergei Nemchinov clinched the win for the Islanders with an empty net goal. Claude Lapointe and Tom Chorsky on the assists. Islanders win it 4-2, 34 saves for Eric Fischel. The Islanders were outshot 36-20, but Fischel had a strong game, while Sergei Nemchinov, our Islanders birthday of the day, scored twice. He was a +2, and he had 5 shots on goal, which tied him for the team lead with Tom Chorsky. He was on the ice for 21-22. So Sergei Nemchinov, one of the few players to play for all three New York area teams, the Islanders, the Rangers, and the Devils, he is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, we're back tomorrow. We'll have our key takeaways from tonight's game against Ottawa, and we'll have our weekly farm report on all things Bridgeport Islanders. And hopefully, Bridgeport can give us a little bit of good news this time around. So make sure you join us for that. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am also live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game, so join me for some instant insight and analysis. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.